Cyclist squat. So the main intention behind this movement is to get into our quads, and we know in order to get into the quads, we need to make sure the knees are traveling over the toes as far as possible. For this reason, we're gonna have our heels elevated. So although we're using slant boards, you may not have a slant board, you just need to get your heels up. And this can be done by raising your heels up on a plate, dumbbell, or mat. So the setup is pretty straightforward. It's a narrow setup. This is really, really important to understand. It is not a wide, your typical squat stance, okay? The reason for this is because once we smash the big balls of our feet into the ground, our first initial cue is gonna be breaking the knees to travel the knees forward over our toes, keeping that posture as vertical as possible, then driving through the balls of our feet to stand tall. So one more time, knees go forward, posture stays upright, and then boom, driving up. Notice my knees are not flaring out. I am not trying to create space in the hips. I'm not trying to get that range of motion with the hips back onto the heels. The intention is to keep the knees, okay, parallel to each other, with knees trying to travel over the toes as far as forward. Okay, so from side view, what I mean by that, guys, is generally speaking, what tends to happen is we think of a typical squat, we lead with the hips, and because our heels are elevated, this does allow us to get more range at the hips. But notice the knees over the toes. We're looking to load the quads up. This means the knees have to travel over the toes. Posture is as upright as possible, then driving through. Now, sometimes people really struggle with this notion of keeping the feet close together. So something like a yoga block or a foam roller can be used as a tactile feedback to be squeezed between the legs. Ball movements of feet, again, onto the ground, pressing into the ground. Standing tall, same cues. Breaking the knees, knees go over the toes as we keep the upright posture, then drive up. That tactile feedback allows us to kind of make sure we're not flaring the knees out and getting to the hips, okay? In terms of the loading, if we choose to load this up in that goblet, is a nice way to load this up. Of course, we can load a barbell if we want to go a little bit heavier. In terms of the reps, be mindful. The way we normally kind of do this is either straightforward reps, like so. This would be 1, or we like to prescribe this in normally 1 1/4 rep, which looks like down, up quarter, down again, and drive up. And this is our cyclist squat.